Minister, the Irish proverb, people live in each other's shadows, was certainly true of rural communities in the past, when we saw the importance of Mehel, neighbours looking out for each other, with a deep sense of who they were, where they wanted to be, and with a vision to better one another's quality of life. But despite all the modern technology and advances, whether it's in transport or communication, in our busy modern world, that shadow that is growing darker is rural remoteness from central services. I have to say, if I had one ask, it is, and I think people in this House, is the issue of addressing the no-speed broadband. 500,000 people waiting on services. Plan rolled out 10 years ago, National Broadband Plan, amended in 2012, and still 500,000 homes waiting on service. In addition to that, in my own community, poor mobile phone coverage service, particularly in remote areas like the Cooley Peninsula, caused major problems that are impacting on daily business, with intermittent coverage. Indeed, along the border region, the whole issue of call dropouts, especially if you live on the coastal region or indeed are doing business cross-border. Curtailment and the axing of post office services, bank facilities, health services, GP services, Garda presence has been the order of the day. We in this House need to commit to no further stripping or depletion of our rural communities. Rural isolation, with the decline in pubs and all of those facilities, have created a remoteness and indeed additional mental health problems and loneliness. The massive imbalance in investment in the economic growth and the concentration in the Greater Dublin area and urban centres has meant that many rural areas in Ireland is on a much lower rung of that economic development ladder. Well, I have to say my region has benefited greatly from job announcements. The fact that 50% of IDA site visits are still in the Greater Dublin area is worrying. I want to see, particularly in my region, more support for the promotion of the M1 corridor, highlighting this region's attractiveness in its proximity to 3 airports, rail services and seaports, and the fact that we're in equidistance between Belfast and Dublin City. It is further essential, and others have mentioned here tonight, that no curtailment occur in the CE schemes, TUS, and indeed rural social schemes, and in fact that they're enhanced to ensure that where sometimes little work opportunity exists, that the skills and opportunities in our rural communities are enhanced and that people get the opportunity to avail of often in these schemes that, believe it or not, I'm sure you're aware of it, Minister, are often the largest employer in rural communities, that being the CE scheme. Those contributions that are given to the Taily towns, the clubs and organisations, I know you recognise, but it needs to be further recognised. In fact, the issue of disability in all our communities, but indeed particularly in the rural community, people need to be located close, and particularly in rural communities, to where they can get gainful employment and recognition. Further to that, there's the whole issue of people in their late 50s who need, for probably having given themselves a hard time, need to go into pre-retirement mode and to give their skills at a slower pace to their communities. I think instance of that is the Men in Sheds, and it's a prime example of self-help, and it needs to be further expanded. We have many excellent schemes, and I want to laud you for those that you have produced, but are often far too cumbersome for small businesses, self-help groups and others find it too difficult to negotiate those particular schemes. It's already highlighted here tonight the underspend, for example, in the LEADER programme, indeed, where in my own community only 19% of the money available has been spent, and that equates to approximately 1 million of the 6 million that is available. I think that's testament to the fact that people find it difficult, and we need to map out in a simpler way for how people go forward. I think I don't want to refer to the whole issue of reducing rates in small towns and villages to encourage re-enhancement of those particular places. I could go on in relation to vacant dwelling houses and the need, I've spoken about that so often in the Dáil, but equally the need maybe to be more proactive in relation to rural one-off housing. We could look at the issue of providing planning permission for eco-friendly buildings We know the decline in farm incomes. We know the issue of rural crime that has been mentioned here. And finally, the Government Action Plan for Rural Development is the 4th rural plan in 33 months. These reports, while well and good, but we need real action on the ground, Minister, with a proper long-term vision and planning to halt growing depopulation.